Positioning is one of the most complicated skills in Overwatch. This video is going to make it simple. I'm Buzz, I'm a Grandmaster tank player, and today I'm going to break down every positioning misconception holding you back. Let's get into it. I wanted to start this video off by talking about what positioning even is. Positioning is how you use the context around you in order to inform your rotations and where you stand in the fight. It's also where you can play for maximum value while lowering your risk. And today I figured I'd go ahead and dive into my own gameplay to show examples of good and bad positioning live. I'll still spend some time breaking down the concepts behind positioning so that you understand going into the VOD review, but the format of this video is going to be a lot different than my last. The first and arguably biggest concept of positioning that I wanted to get into today is how the enemy team affects your positioning. Understanding your threats and where you can be punished from will help you choose a better position because you can minimize your risk when you understand that. If you can play in a space that's hard to clear and has low risk for you, it can force their team to force you out of that space and therefore draw resources from their front line. Another important concept of positioning is playing cover. Playing cover is a very heavily talked about concept in Overwatch. For that reason, I don't want to spend too much time talking about it today, but I did want to reference the Diva Bomb rule again. As I said in my last video, the Diva Bomb rule is that if I threw a Diva Bomb at you right now and you couldn't get to cover to avoid it, you're out of position. And before I get into the VOD review, I also wanted to talk about playing your effective range. Playing to your character's effective range is an extremely important concept in Overwatch. Being able to understand your character's job and the threats around you helps you always pick a good position. The last concept I wanted to get into before this VOD review is that good positioning is not static. The position you should take is contextual based off of the scenario around you, the enemy comp, and your hero's strengths and weaknesses. So without further ado, let's get into the VOD review. When I'm playing Juno on King's Row, keeping my team supported and on my screen is always going to be my priority here. And you can see we get a huge pick right out of the gate, so I kind of swing aggressively, but even when I swing aggressively, I'm still playing pretty close to this corner. I think I started this map in a good position. I may have kept the position a little too long, but we still have an advantage, so we're able to swing more aggressively. If you notice this from their Sierra's POV, who is my biggest threat, she doesn't really have good LOS on me at any point during this fight, which is crucial for being able to play into things that counter you. Watching the game from the enemy's perspective while you're playing can really inform your decisions on how you're playing and give you some better feedback as to how you're positioning. So we kind of just win this fight because it was a little bit of a steamroll because we got an early pick, but even so, the positioning was good. Really important to document here too that the pre-fight to the mid-fight changes your positioning. Once we have that pick and we have the advantage, you'll notice I swing a little wider. Here we're just playing this corner, healing up my team, playing pretty slow because we don't have the cart progress. The cart is really important for addressing how you position as well. Now I swing here a little wider than I'd like to, however I have to because I can't heal my Orisa otherwise. My Orisa goes in with ult, and I make my first pretty significant mechanical mistake of this VOD, which is I hold my torpedoes for way too long and I don't heal my Orisa. Mechanics aren't really what I'm looking at, but it does eventually lead into a bad position where I'm able to get run over by the Ramatra. So far, no major positioning mistakes, and transitioning from the pre-fight to the mid-fight has been good. Here, I'm playing for a Ray, so I go a little more aggressive. I don't even know that I needed this Ray, but regardless, I think it was a good play because I had the Ray to keep me safe. Here we have the advantage, and this is the cleanup, so I'm able to fly on this cast and win the 1v1. Going into this next fight here, this is good position at first because I have a good wide frame of the battlefield, but however, I peek it a little too long and end up getting not picked, but forced out really quickly. Our team decides to disengage this Juno ult, which is actually really good play and really good coordination, even for Diamond. And then we're able to reposition, take it back once that Juno Ray goes away. Understanding how you position against ults can help you out as well, because you can know that if their Juno is going to use their Ray or something like that, you can play back further. Here, this is a very risky position, but their Sierra is pushing me, so I kind of just bait her around and keep running from her. As Juno, surviving is very important, so keeping myself alive is good, and I'm pulling the attention of the Sierra. A lot of people mention that attention is a resource that you need to manage in the fight, and positioning is how you can bait attention from the other team. Eventually, I see my Orisa is wanting to go left here, and this is actually a really interesting time to pause here. My Orisa wants this left side, and my team wants this top right. It's actually okay for me to go with this Orisa to give her some support because she has her ultimate and she wants to clear out this space. However, what I end up making the mistake of is I go too wide, and I end up getting picked by this soldier when I swing for my missiles when I could have really just played farther back. And you see, this mistake is actually really crucial because we lose this fight because we're down to support. And our Orisa uses her ult, and if I'm here, we probably win this fight. I could either position up high ground, or I could just play further back to where their soldier will have to swing wider to hit me because that will get him in their Echo's LOS, or in my Echo's LOS. And here I heard someone coming, so I give up that position. However, I take another good high ground position. High ground's an important concept when you're playing Juno or really any character, but being able to play high ground is going to cut some of the LOS from you. Here I see my Pharah pushing that soldier, so we clean that up, and I go forward a little bit because we have an advantage in the Sierra's 1. However, this is a very bad mistake. Off-angling on Juno is not always a mistake. However, I push into a line where Sierra has support, and I just get bursted down. This is probably the worst play I've made in this game so far. Luckily, I do get res, and we start to turn the fight, but it was a very bad play. Understanding when you can push aggression is good, but their Sierra had a good position. She had cover and she had a support, so I could never realistically punish that. Here, this position's a little better because the only thing that can see me is their Juno and their Ramatra, which are not my primary threats. As Juno, my primary threats are these hit scans, so that determines how I play the team fight. And being able to swing wide with my missiles here is okay because I'm not as in immediate danger as I would be if their soldier or Sierra were in the fight. Here I want to play for the Ray, so I position up a little bit. I swing for some torpedoes, which again, is okay if you have Ray. It's still a little aggressive and out in the open, but it's not a bad play. Then we kite out their ults and re-engage with ours. This fight, I believe we should have lost, to be honest, because they use their ult rotation really well, and my Pharah just ends up popping off. If you see here, I'm standing down main, which is like almost always bad. However, it is also bad that their soldier was able to get through, and they used 3 ults. So it's like, in a situation like this, a lot of times there's not really anything you can do, and it's best to just reset and go next. Which we do use some ults as well, so ends up being pretty neutral. And you see here, our Pharah ends up cleaning up that fight since we had the better respawns, and we just win that fight. Here, coming into third, the sight lines are a lot tighter, and denying the high ground from their hit scans is going to be incredibly important for being able to survive on Juno. So I swing a little wide for torpedoes because I thought my Orisa was walking, but it didn't end up costing me this time. And then I see this soldier on an off angle. Again, off angles are probably the most important concept in positioning, because when this soldier pulls from here, he's going to pull away the resources from our Orisa, from our Pharah that are up in the front line. And if he's putting pressure on us from this angle, like, this is an incredible angle from this soldier. So just to keep that in mind when we're watching through these videos. I'm also out in the open a little bit here, but the only threat is the soldier, and he's very clearly marked on my screen, so I don't think it's a mistake. Here, I try to open an off angle of my own. I start to go for this, but then I realize that this is probably too risky of a position. As I mentioned in the intro, you want to minimize your risk while maximizing your value is how you find a good position. Taking this high ground is good. However, it is a little risky because the Sierra is able to swing into me, and I realize this, and I end up dropping the high ground. So this play is actually a really bad positioning example from our tank. I don't want to, mindlessly flame this guy or anything. I think this is actually a really good example for a positioning video. Since this video is going to be from the perspective of the support for the most time, I think it's also valuable to get some insight on what it looks like from a tank. We have already lost our Echo and our Pharah, I believe. Let's see. Yeah. So no, our Pharah is alive going down here. So maybe this is a set play. Maybe they were duoed. However, as the tank, you got to make sure you have support when you're on an angle like this. And if you're going to ult so far in front of the cart, you got to realize you're probably not going to have that much support. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 people looking at this, the tank. and they all get pulled in. And again, it's not a bad ult by any mean, it's just a very risky play, and it forces me to fly forward when I don't really want to do that, and then the soldier's able to get this angle on us. So luckily it pays off because our Pharah came back up from hovering under the map, but it was a very risky play that most likely doesn't pay off in a lot of scenarios. Here I swing wide with torpedoes. This was a little too wide, I think. I need to be more careful with that. Here, this position's really good because I know that what I can see on my screen is I can see my teammates. So I can see my Pharah, I can see my Ramatra, and I know that their soldier is over here because I can see like his bullets flying by, and I don't see him over here. So basically, this is a good position because if you see where I'm standing, the soldier can't see me. And like I said, the soldier and the Sierra are my biggest threats. Again, here, if the soldier wanted to shoot at me, he'd have to swing farther, and that opens him up to more spam from my Orisa and my Echo. It also plays in when you see the Sierra drop because she is like trying to shoot under her and she can't really see me from her perspective. So she knows I'm down there, but she can't see me. Eventually she drops and gets away with it because the fight was kind of devolving, and she does pick up the kill on me, but that's because this fight was over and they were using their ults. All right, and here we have Ray and we have a pick. So this is when we want to push forward to extend our advantage. So I swing with my Ray and with my ring, and we clean up this fight and win. And I'm able to play a little out in the open here because first of all, their soldier's dead, and second of all, we have ults up, right? We have the dominant position. We're able to just kind of lock eyes with them and fight. Looking back at the examples in this video, you can really see both sides of positioning in action. There were times that I took good space at the right time and completely controlled the fight, but there were others where I made pretty big mistakes, being too risky in my positioning. Positioning isn't something that you have to figure out once. It's being able to constantly make the correct decision based on the context of the fight. Once you start thinking about positioning as a risk versus reward trade, the game becomes a lot easier to understand. And as we close up here, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for the incredible support on my last video. That last video did better than I could have ever expected, and I'm excited for the chance to share my knowledge of Overwatch with so many new people. I'm currently on the push for 1,000 subscribers, so if this video helped you, liking the video and subscribing to the channel helps me out more than you may know. I also have a Discord server, which is linked in the description. It's a place where you can join to talk about Overwatch improvement, find people to queue with, or just join to chat. My climbing guide video is on the end card now if you want more Overwatch educational content.